and partial liberation after the me. And partial liberation after the me has collapsed, fallen away, dissipated, collapsed, fallen away. Once the story has ended for a me that was the sense of separation of self, before the me began the story, before the me was seemingly born into embodiment. Embodiment will continue to happen for self. Once there is recognition of all that is, it simply is everything and nothing appearing as everything and no thing, not objectively, both real and unreal simultaneously. That is for no one or nobody. Now, there is a paradox in that, of course. There is the seemingly apparent appearance of a paradox that can happen based on witnessing that which is associated with the apparent appearance of the expectation for another collapse or falling away to happen. The self will have yet to experience the apparent appearance of the falling away or collapse of the witness, simply because there is still embodiment. When there is the apparent appearance of embodiment, there is mindfulness. But that state of consciousness or level of awareness is no longer associated with supporting separation, supporting mindfulness, minding of a me, is that me collapsed, fell away, exposed the seeker. Seeker no longer could seek, can no longer continue seeking that which the me sought, regarding all that simply is, everything and nothing, simultaneously real and unreal. And so, collapse of the me and separation, collapse of the seeker and separation, there is the witness. Why? How is that appearing in all of this and all that is? Via embodiment. Now, that is partial liberation. Partial liberation, since the apparent appearance of embodiment is happening. The witness is witnessing and witnessed the collapse of the me and the seeker, and now the witness seemingly has more direct contact with self simply because the me and the seeker already fell away. Seemingly apparently appeared as though it fell away when it was seemingly inevitable for that to happen. In the oneness itself, recognizes as all this, that is completeness, wholeness, perfection, unconditional love, beyond description, beyond concept. It is unknowable, indescribable, and yet all that simply is can still be what now? No longer pointed at, or referred to, or references from a me and from a seeker. What happens then is simply witnessing the apparent appearance of all that is in the state of partial liberation. That state of partial liberation can be described because it is not absolute liberation. Because that is not a representation of all that is absolutely beyond liberation. Liberation is not an attainment, it's not a requirement, it's not acquired, it is not seized, it's not held. There is no attachment to that. It is neither approachable nor is it retractable. It is the apparent appearance of a step or process of liberation that happens. For in that process of separation, it is witnessed that the interim, or during the time of the seemingly apparent appearance of successions of events as a timeline, with that threefold principle, that three-way split of past, present, and future, cognizant timelines to a me, that exists moment to moment to moment. In the past, the me did that, did this, and now it's going to do this and that, duality, based on the experience of the me, of the information and experiences of the past, which is likened to the three-way split of separation itself experienced. The separation that self-experienced as the beginning of a story, as the apparent appearance of being born. With the red dot here. And then the beginning of the story, the baby. That's my hand, that's me. 3, 4 years, speech of a language, conditioning, to eventually become a me and begin another story, another incarnation, and the apparent appearance of an incarnation. That is the concept of reincarnation. Reincarnating into what? Into the apparent appearance of another me in another story happening. A story happening within all of this that is already complete. So therefore, to the me, in a sense, this is a reality frame. This is a stage whereby a me can begin a story that can take place and that will take place. Is there an escape from that separation? There is no escape, and there is escape. But it is only interpreted as an escape both when separation is happening and when the retraction happens. The self, one with all that is, and then the apparent appearance of being born into this reality begins a new story. A new me is born. The apparent appearance of a new me is born as a newborn me, a newborn infant, baby. That embodiment is the apparent appearance of a process that goes on and on, because it is part of all that is. The seemingly apparent appearance of being born as a baby, as an infant, and the process by which that happens, and the seemingly apparent appearance of embodiment along with the biological processes, along with the molecular structure, and the science, the very science behind how all that is, in a glimpse, in a sense, to say that all that is entertaining all that is. And that entertainment encompasses everything. It encompasses absolutely everything. It encompasses all of it, all that is. It encompasses any and all experiences of a me, any and all experiences of a self. Is that doing? Is that activity? It is the apparent appearance of doing an activity. Nothing more, nothing less. All it is simply is. The witness remains. The witness remains because there is the apparent appearance of embodiment happening. And until there's a death and collapse and dissipation and the apparent appearance of a removal of a disassociation, of non-attachment, then the apparent appearance of embodiment collapses, dies, and then at that point, not even a point, cannot be described as a point or a moment or suddenly a recognition beyond partial liberation that the self becomes absolutely liberating into one with all that is. That cannot be evidential, cannot be proven, cannot be witnessed. Because the witness collapsed. The witness fell away. Embodiment collapsed, died, and fell away. So without the witness and without embodiment, there is no witnessing, and the embodiment is no longer bodying, then there is absolute liberation in that. But for these moments that are apparently appearing for the witness, that there's embodiment, the partial liberation is experienced, it is recognized, and partial liberation continues to happen and is being temporarily maintained by the impermanence of partial liberation that happens, along with the apparent appearance of embodiment. So the witness carries on in partial liberation. Witnessing what? Witnessing suffering happening. The suffering of what? The suffering of me's that are trapped in the delusion that they're experiencing that sense of separation. And in that sense of separation, there is much suffering. Not only suffering in embodiment, but suffering of the mind. Dis-eases of the mind. Alzheimer's, dementia, so-called, so-named ADHD, ADD, attention deficit disorders, ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorders, multiple personality disorders. These are dis-eases and nothing more. Dis-eases. Diseases of what? Diseases of the mind, and diseases that a me is distorted, is living in distortion, is existing via embodiment and mindfulness as a distortion that is disharmony and not aligned with all of this. That is perfect, that is whole, that is complete, and unconditional love and compassion and cooperation. In a sense, that could be said that it is a path, scientifically a path of least resistance. Using that metaphor loosely. A path less trodden, or the path of least resistance via a scientific interpretation. Now here is the merging of science and non-duality. The merging of science and non-duality is taking a recognition of all that is, using a scientific approach, via the metaphor and the idea and concept and interpretation of all that is, the feeble attempt of even the witness in partial liberation will recognize that, will recognize that the reality frame that the me and the seeker were operating on while separation was happening for the me and seeker, they were operating on separateness that is duality. Separateness that is duality of good and bad, right and wrong, yin and yang, polarity, night and day, light, darkness, heavy, light, heaviness, sensations from one spectrum to another. The spectrum of experience. The spectrum of experience to varying degrees, that is limitation. It is limited. It has boundaries, it has parameters. A me and a seeker have those parameters of duality. Of the duality of embodiment, the duality of mindfulness, the duality of emotional states, the duality of taste, of all five senses, five sensory modalities of hearing, tasting, seeing, feeling. You could add some other modalities there, the embodiment, seemingly apparently happens for embodiment via the apparent appearance of action taking place in a virtual reality that is both real and unreal. It is real to the me, it is real to the seeker, and is also unreal to the me and the seeker until there is witness that it is both. Once the me is no longer interfering, and once the seeker is no longer interfering, and there's just a witness with self, which is a representation of all this, of all that simply is, everything and nothing simultaneously real and unreal. Is that it? No. But that is a glimpse of providing information to the witness that all that is simply is, that and much, much more that is unknowable. And that which is unknowable to even the witness in partial liberation is that which appears as absolute liberation and one with all that is, without embodiment and without the witness. So the witness collapses, falls away. Embodiment no longer has the witness to support it. That dies and falls away. Embodiment, bodying. It's no longer bodying. The witness is no longer there with embodiment and with the self. Self is one with all that is in absolute liberation. That can never be evidential, simply because there is no longer embodiment and a witness with self. The witness will ponder on that. Pondering happens. Namaste.